Welcome, everyone. This is Mylio's Getting Started webinar. This is part 3. If you joined us for the 2 previous parts, this is a continuation building upon what we've already learned. If you're just joining us for the first time, we will cover the basics and show you some of the things that we have already covered. And if you have any questions, we can cover those at the end. I'm JC Figueroa. I'm the customer success lead at Mylio Photos. That means that I manage the support team and I help with all the educational efforts. I'm also an underwater photographer and a photo organization educator. I've been a media technology professional for many, many years, although I have taught. So that's who I am. And joining me to help answer questions is Laurie Rubin. Laurie is one of our product evangelists. She's a professional photographer, a very good one at that. And she's a photo educator. She'll be manning your questions and helping me manage all the behind the scenes things that are going on. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to discuss today. We are in Getting Started Part 3, which is getting organized with Mylio Photos. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to use a lot of the tools in Mylio to do actual organization and to actually create the data that Mylio needs to continually organize your photos. We're going to look at 3 different views: the calendar view, the map view, and the people view. These are the views that are mostly done automatically based on the data that's already on your photos. But if some data is missing or is incorrect, you can correct it so that these views become that much more helpful. And we'll discuss it as we go. We're also going to talk about albums and folders. As a matter of fact, I need to create an album, so I'm going to use the webinar as my opportunity to create that album, and you get to watch me do it. So that is what we're going to talk about. And then at the end, if we have a little bit of time, we'll touch briefly on both photo dedupe and photo declutter, which are ways to find duplicates of your photos or similar photos. So let's go back to the top here and start talking about the 3 views that you can use as your main views in Mylio to find photos that are automatically organized and how you can improve the results and the quality of those views. All right, so here I am. This is the calendar view. Let me move some things and close some things that are distracting and make that go away. So here's my calendar view. And for those of you that are new to Mylio and haven't been to our previous section, all of the views in Mylio are on the left side of the screen. We have the all photos view, which shows you every photo you have all in one. You have the calendar view, which basically organizes your photos based on when the photo was taken. You have the map view, which organizes the photos based on where a photo was taken. So it shows you the location of the photo on the map. And you have the people view, which takes photos that have people in them and puts those photos in a virtual container along with other photos of the same individual. So over here is my son-in-law, Alex. I have 876 photos of him. And right next to that, there's a question mark because Mylio is basically saying, hey, I think I found more photos of Alex. You might want to check in there and confirm. And we will do that in a little bit. I'm just giving you an overview. All right. There's also the album view and the folder view, which we'll cover in a second. So let's go back to the calendar view and briefly talk about what this view is and why is it helpful. So in the calendar view, the default or if I double click on that view, it takes me to the top level, the default view, which is showing me the photos by decade. So here I can see photos from the 2020 decade, from the 2010s decade. See how there's a little decades icon over here. And as I scroll through, the top of the view is changing to showing me what I'm seeing in the center of the screen. And you can see that I'm able to go back in time and see photos and important events that happen on any particular year. Mylio is smart enough to kind of pick out and highlight photos that are important to you based on how you've treated those photos, whether you have put a star rating on a photo or whether those photos are part of an important event. If you look at 2023 here, there's a photo of a baby. That is my new granddaughter, Lucy. Lucy was born this year, and I have an event for when Lucy was born, and you can see Mylio is highlighting that as being an important event for me. Same as when my daughter got married, birthday that I got to see my mom for the first time after the pandemic, so on and so forth. And I can go back in time and see other important events and parts of my life, like my son being born. I can go over here to my daughter being born. It's funny that my baby now had a baby, right? I can see photos of myself in high school and college and so on. And I can even go back in time to photos from before I was born, of my family, important moments, important things. My dad getting in a war in the military. The only photo I have of my grandma, I never got to meet her. So this calendar view is super useful. Now, if you're taking photos with your phone or with a camera that has the correct date set on it, those photos are going to have the correct date, and they're automatically going to appear in the calendar because Mylio will put them there correctly. I can go into any year. So I can go here into, let's say 2018. I can go into the month of May for that year. So now I'm looking at May 2018, and I can go into a specific day, like May 4th of 2018, and I can see all the photos that were taken on that day. And then I can grab any one of these photos, and I can find more information about it by clicking the info button. And with the info panel, I can see this photo was taken with an iPhone and when it was taken, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So because this photo was taken with a phone and the data for the photo was added correctly, the photo is in the appropriate place in my calendar view, which is very helpful. Now, there's photos that might come from a scan. There's photos that you might have taken with a camera, but the camera was set to the wrong time zone, or the date wasn't set at all. In those cases, you can take those photos and correct the date. And one of the easiest ways to do that is when you find a photo that has the incorrect date, you can set that photo to undated. When you do that and you scroll to the top of the calendar, I'm going to grab this little flag here that lets me navigate very fast. And I'm going to go all the way to the top of my calendar. And you'll see there's a container here, a little bucket called undated. Here is where I put all the photos that I have for which I don't have a correct date. And what I did is, instead of the incorrect date that was on that photo, which was the date it was scanned, I changed that photo to undated. And now, because they're all in one place, I have the opportunity to go ahead and put the correct date on this photo. So I know that this photo was taken in my elementary school years. I have a lot more hair there. I recognize some of my friends. This was probably in the 6th grade, I want to say. And I think it was, we're all dressed up. So I'm thinking it was the last day of school. So this was probably in May of 6th grade. I was what? How old are you in 6th grade, Lori?
I'm not going to say.
So six plus 5, so 11. I was 11 years old. So this was probably taken in 1980. So I'm going to say this was taken around May of 1980. I don't remember the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it's on May of 1980. So I can go here and I can say this photo was taken on a month and year. The month was May, and the year was 1980. So I can scroll and find 1980, click save. And now when I go back to my calendar view, if I go to the year 1980, look, that photo is there and is highlighted in the month of May. So it's just that simple to correct photos. And of course, I don't have to do one photo at a time because most photos are going to be grouped together. I can go to that grouping, and it can be any grouping. It doesn't have to be in this undated group. But for example, all of these photos right here look like they were taken around the same time. So I could change the date on all of them at once. And I can say, looks like that was in the summer of, I look to be 4 years old. So that was in the summer of 1973. Or this photo right here, you can see that it has a date on the side, July of 1970. So I was a little over a year old. So I can go here and say, oh, this photo was taken in month and year. And I can say July of 1970. I don't know. Every year it seems that I have to scroll further and further back when I'm picking a year. I don't understand why that is. All right. So that is how you correct dates in Mylio. And those dates are now going to appear in the calendar correctly. And this is super useful because not only can you find them in the calendar correctly, but you can find them in other views when you're applying a quick filter by date. And if you miss quick filters, we talked about that last time. We also have quite a bit of material on our community site that discusses how quick filters work. The date quick filters are fantastic. So be sure to look for that and learn more about it. So that is the calendar view. Let's move on to the next view, which is the map view. The map view is a really cool way to find photos based on when a photo was taken. You can zoom in on any particular area. And the more you zoom in, the more detail you get about the photos that you took in that area. The little thumbnails of photos starts to become more and more distributed, and you can see fewer photos, but with a lot more detail as to where the actual photo was taken. So here we can see photos taken along the beach versus a big group of photos that was just taken in Jacksonville. Now, sometimes if a photo, again, was taken with a phone or with a camera that captures GPS data, you know that that information is going to be accurate and that the location of the photo is added automatically. But sometimes you have photos that are not taken with a camera that has GPS data. And in those cases, you can use Mylio to add the data yourself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find some of those photos and I'm going to use Mylio to add the data. I'm going to go here to my all photos view. And I'm going to make sure that I'm sorting by date created. And I'm sorting in descending order, which means that my newest photos are at the very top. So I'm going to go to the very top. And I know I took some photos with one of my Sony cameras in Jacksonville Beach when I was there last month. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to ask Mylio to filter by that camera. It is, like I said, a Sony camera, and it is specifically a Sony 7R Mark V. So I'm going to ask for photos taken with that camera. And here's some of those photos. And now I'm going to open that info panel. And notice that in the info panel, I have info, but I also have a map. And if I click this little button, it split the screen. So now I have the photos on one side. Oh, I just turned that filter off by mistake. 1 second. Let's turn that filter back on. On one side, I have my photos, and on the other side, I have the map. I'm going to say where I was, Jacksonville. Oh, I'm not typing. There we go. Jacksonville Beach. And it's taking me to that location. And I know exactly where I was because I remember where we rented a house, and it was right around this area. A little further south, just north of that pier is where I took a lot of these photos of this beach sailboat. So now I'm going to, on the right side here, I'm going to select a lot of these photos, and I can multiple select by holding down the command key if I'm on a Mac system, or the control key if I'm on a Windows system. If you are on a mobile device, you can do that by tapping and holding down, and that will take you into the multi-selection gesture for a mobile device. So there I grab a bunch of photos. I can now move all those photos to the area where they were taken, and I can be pretty selective. I can even zoom in that area and be more precise if I want to. But I just want a general location of where they were taken. So I'm just going to click the check mark, and Mylio very quickly tagged those 25 photos with the correct location. So now if I were to go back to my map view and I zoomed in on that area, those photos that I just geotagged would be presented, and they're probably going to be part of this group. There they are. So it's just that easy. Very, very quick way of geotagging your photos, and very quick way of correcting dates on your photos, which makes both of these views, the calendar view and the map view, that much more useful. All right, the next view is the people view, which is one of my favorites and one that our customers love and use a lot. you'll notice that I have a lot of people in my view here. And we talked earlier about my son-in-law, Alex, and how there's 876 photos of him, but there's a little question mark there. So that means that Mylio has found photos of Alex. And the way this container got created to begin with is I found a few photos that had Alex's face on it, and I gave Mylio the name of the person. Let me show you. So if I go here and I start scrolling through towards the bottom, there's going to be new photos of Alex. See, there's photos that are not confirmed. They have little check marks or X's on them. If I were to click the check mark on any one of these photos, it confirms that that is indeed Alex in his Halloween costume. If one of these was incorrect, they're not. They're all correctly tagged by Mylio. I could click the X and say, this is not Alex. I could even click the question mark and say who this person is. This is someone else, and just type their name here. So once a bucket of photos has been created, Mylio is going to do its best to put all the photos of that person in that bucket. And using the batch tagging tool, which is in our tools menu, I can just have Mylio only show me the photos that need to be tagged, and I can approve them all at once. See how they're all there, and I have a big approve button here. So I'm just going to click that, and now they're all approved. Now, I don't have to go bucket by bucket. I can also do this from what Mylio calls the on-tag container. This is showing me all the photos that I have in Mylio that have faces on them. You know, Mylio has found faces and has highlighted those faces, but those faces are not assigned to any particular individual. If I'm in that container, I can click again that batch tagging tool, and it's going to show me all the people that it thinks I have photos for. So here's photos of baby Lucy, and Mylio is already doing a great job of learning the face of my granddaughter. So I could go ahead and click approve, and all of those photos are now part of that container. And here's Lucy's mom, and some of these are correct, some of these are not. Notice that Lucy, the baby, is being bundled with Madeline, her mom, and that's not right. So I can either X those out, or I can correct them right here by picking the correct name. The more photos I confirm of a particular individual, the better Mylio gets at finding that individual. There's some wrong ones here that I'm going to X out. And sometimes you find a photo that you don't need, or that it has a face that you don't want to keep. You can select to ignore that face, and that face won't come up again. So, and again, you can do this from anywhere. You don't have to be in this view or in the batch tagging tool. I can go, for example, to a specific date. So I can go into my calendar view, and I can go to the year 2008, and I can say, Mylio, show me all the photos for this year. So I'm in January. See how I have January 2008 selected? I can say show all selected. And then I can say, hey, do I have any photos from January 2008 that need to be tagged? I can click batch face tagging, and there are none. Everything for that date has been already face tagged. I can go to a folder and say, are there any folders in my Apple Photos folder that, or in my iPhone library, that need to be face tagged? So I can launch the face tagging tool there, and look, it did find some. There's some of myself, so I'm going to say approve those. There's some of my friend Zia, so I'm going to approve those. And there's some of my daughter. So now I'm working in the iPhone library folder. I don't have to be in that people view to do face tagging, but the more face tagging I do, the better Mylio gets at finding those people, and the more photos of that person I'm going to find when I'm in that person's container. So if I went to Lucy now, scroll down to the letter L and find my granddaughter Lucy, all those photos that I just approved and tagged for her are going to be found in that container. I already have 382 photos of that baby, and I'm sure there's going to be quite a few more. So there you have it. That's how people view works. And this is one of the ways in which your photos can be organized correctly into these views by providing better, more accurate data when that data is incorrect. Calendar view helps you find photos based on when the photo was taken. Map view helps you find photos based on where the photo was taken. And the people view helps you find photos based on who is in the photo. Next, we're going to talk about albums and folders. Now, albums are just a virtual collection. They're not the place where your photos actually physically live in your hard drive. Contrast that with folders, which are the location in your storage devices where the photos actually go to. A photo can only be in one folder at a time unless you make a copy of it. So I like to organize my folders based on trips. That's where I take most of my photos, is when I'm traveling. So if I go here to my trips folder and I go to Florida 2003, that's the trip that I just took to go meet my granddaughter. There is a corresponding folder in my hard drive, in my storage outside of Mylio, that I can find all the photos that I've put in that folder. But if I wanted to make an album with photos from my granddaughter, I could put those photos, whether they're in this folder or another folder, all in a virtual collection. As a matter of fact, I have one. I can go here into my album view, and there's photos of Lucy. And those photos are not copies. They haven't been duplicated. They're just a virtual collection that I can find within the Mylio app. Folders you can find outside of Mylio. Albums only live inside the Mylio app on any of your devices. I hope that's clear. Now let's talk about how we make a folder. So I'm up here on my, let's talk about how we make an album. I'm in my album view, and I have a collection of albums here called Picture of the Week. This is something that we do at Mylio. Every month we have a company meeting, and later today, we have a company meeting, and we get to showcase some of the photos we've taken. So I'm going to go and find some photos to put in the Picture of the Week album for this week. So I'm going to open this album, and I'm going to say, oh, I want to create a new sub-album within the album. I'm inside the Picture of the Week album, and I want to create one for October of 2023. Although release November, so we'll create one for November. So I'm just going to do new album. And I'm going to call it Picture of the Week for November of 2023. And I'm going to hit create. And there's that album. Right now it's empty. I want to find some photos to put in that album. So I'm going to go to my all photos view. And what I want to find is some of the shots that I took in Florida during my last trip that I know are really good shots because I edited them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter, use the quick filters to find some of those photos. I'm going to filter by rating and find some of them. I'm going to say, okay, show me my 4- and 5-star photos. And here I have some photos that I already rated where I'm with my granddaughter. So I can right mouse click on those and say, move them to an album. So I can say add to album. And I'm going to navigate to the album I just created, which is the Picture of the Week for November of 2023. When I hit continue, those 3 photos are going to be added to that album. I also want to find some photos that I took that I have edited. And I know I edited them outside of Mylio using a third-party editing app. And I created what we call a display image. So I'm going to go by file extension here. And I'm going to find JPEG images. And here's some, I'm going to do both. There we go. Here's a shot of the moon that I want to show to some of the folks at the meeting. And there's the sunset shot. And of course, there's some really cute shots of Lucy that I want to include. And this shot of the Blue Angels that I got to take. So those are 4 shots I want to add. I'm going to click add to album. Mylio remembers the last album I navigated to, which happens to be the same album I want to put these photos in. So I'm going to click continue. And I did it. Now I'm going to move from the all photos view because I don't want to see all this filter view of my photos. I just want to go to my albums view. And if I go to the picture of the week, there are the photos that I want to showcase for today's company meeting. And there you have it. That is how you create an album in Mylio. So albums correspond to kind of what we were talking before in terms of organization. We talked about calendar being photos found based on when the photo was taken, map being photos found where a photo was taken, and people being photos based on who is in the photo. Album is one of the ways in which you find photos based on what is in the photo or an important collection of photos to you. And folders is a way to organize or find your photos in a way that can be found also outside of Mylio. But it's a direct representation of how the photos are stored in your storage system and your hard drives. All right, so we still have time. So let's talk quickly about photo deduping and photo declutter. Now, these two tools play a very important role in your organization work because they're going to reduce the size of the library. And one of the issues that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is that we collect photos over the years, we take lots of photos, and sometimes we're kind of drowning in them. And we have multiple copies of the same photo, or we might have a lot of photos that are very, very similar, and we don't know which ones to keep. Both of these tools help us clean up some of that clutter, remove extra redundant photos of copies of the photos that we have, so that we can reduce the overall size of our library and really keep things that are meaningful and important to us, thus letting us enjoy our photos much more easily. So let's go to the Mylio view again. And from any view, I can launch any of these tools, right? And one of the great things about Mylio is that if I launch this tool from a specific view, for example, if I select 2008 and I were to go ahead and launch the photo dedupe tool, is automatically going to apply a quick filter and try to find duplicates that correspond with 2008. Now, I don't have any duplicates for 2008, so in this case, that's not helpful. But I wanted you guys to know that this is something that you can do. You can go to a folder, for example. Let me leave the photo dedupe tool. I'm going to go to a folder, and I'm going to say, I want to find duplicates that might be inside my trips folder. I want to clean that folder and make sure there's no duplicates in it. So I'm going to go launch the photo dedupe tool. And now Mylio is finding duplicates that exist within that folder. Now, there's a couple of things here. One is Mylio is showing me there's 31 sets of duplicates encompassing a total of 64 files. You'll notice that some of the sets have more than one duplicate. So I can go through here and I could manually identify which ones I want to keep, or I could use the auto check tool, which I'll show you in a second, to mark those duplicates for me. You'll notice that one of these sets has a yellow bucket around it, or a yellow outline around it. And it's saying all originals for a duplicate set must be present to automatically deduplicate media. And you'll notice that somehow I brought the same photo into Mylio multiple times. One of them is in the Mylio inbox. One of them was automatically imported from my iPhone. You'll see that it's in the Apple Photos and JC's iPhone library. And one of them appears to not even be here. And I know why. It was a test that I was doing, and I deleted that folder before Mylio got a chance to save the original. So that one is missing. So I know that I don't have that original. I can just delete that. So I highlighted and deleted it. And now if I run the deduplication tool once more, I don't have that yellow outline because the two duplicates remaining, I do have the originals for them. So that is what that yellow outline means. Sometimes it just means that the device that contains your original photos is not plugged in. So you might have your photos on an external drive. You might need to plug that drive in, and then that yellow outline won't be there. Just know that you have to leave the photo deduplication tool and come back for it to reread and know that the original is now present. Okay, so how do I delete these photos? Well, like I said, I could go and manually say, I want to delete all the photos that are in my inbox because those are duplicates, or I can have Mylio do it. I can launch the auto check, and the auto check is just a logic check. It's just the computer going through a series of criteria. Was the photo edited? Yes or no? Was the photo, you want to keep the copy where the date in the photo is earlier or later? Do you want to keep a photo that has an XMP or has a rating? Or do you want to keep a photo that has a longer path or a shorter path? These are all criteria that you can select. You can also change the prioritization of this criteria. If the rating of a photo is very important to you and you want to make sure that photos with a higher rating are the ones that are kept, you can move rating to the top of this criteria. If you want to make sure that photos that are in a certain folder are removed versus other, you can add a folder to this logic criteria. So I can click here and I can say inbox. And I know that there's a couple of photos that I put in the inbox, but they also got imported from my phone. I don't want them in two places, so I want them out of the inbox. So I'm going to select that folder. And I'm going to say, if there's a duplicate that's in my Mylio inbox, go ahead and remove that duplicate. Keep the other copy of the photo. So now that I'm happy with my criteria, I'm going to run auto check. And Mylio has gone through and has checked all the photos based on that logic. So it's kept photos that meet that criteria, and it has selected them for me. And now all I have to do is either move them. And moving the duplicates means that you're going to put them outside of your Mylio library. So if you're paranoid like me and you don't want to, William, burst shots do not show us dupes. And I'll talk about that in just a second when we talk about declutter. So I can move the duplicates outside of my Mylio library and they won't be deleted. They'll be in a folder somewhere in my computer that I choose to put them in, or I can delete them. If I delete them, Mylio is just going to delete them. They'll go in the trash bin of your device, and then when you empty the trash, they'll actually be gone. So if I were to click delete check, it's going to say, oh, you have 32 files. You're going to save about 0.5 GB of space. And it's giving me the option to merge any metadata between those duplicates so that I don't lose any of the work we've done. So imagine if there were duplicates of a photo and one of them I have gone through the effort of face tagging or correcting the date, but the other one I had not. Well, I don't want to delete the work I've done, so Mylio is going to merge that work in the remaining copy. And that's how dedupe works. Very important thing about dedupe. Dedupe is deleting duplicate files, right? So if you have a photo that is exactly the same size, exactly the same format, and exactly the same resolution, to a computer, when the computer reads the bits of data of that photo or of that file, it knows that it's a duplicate. What the software is not doing is it doesn't look at the photo, at the actual image, and analyze the image and say, oh, I think these are the same photo. No, it's looking at the bits of data, and that's how it knows that it's a duplicate. When you have photos that are very similar, there's a different tool that we use for that, and that is the photo declutter tool. And it's perfect for things like burst photography. So I'm going to leave the photo dedupe tool, and instead I'm going to go into my photo declutter tool. I don't have any folders selected, so there won't be any filters applied. I'm just simply going to launch the tool, photo declutter, and what it's showing me now is photos that are very, very similar. And the default setting is matching the camera. So if a photo was taken with the same camera, match camera, and I don't mean the same camera model, I mean the same camera down to the serial number, and it's matching the aspect ratio, so the photos were taken in the same orientation. And in this case, the default is set to 2 seconds. So any photos that were taken within 2 seconds of each other is going to group them, and it's going to show me those groups of photos. So now I can go to this first group, for example, and I can see that these are 3 photos taken of my friends and I. And I can choose if one of these is better than the others, and I can select the other 2 to be removed. Same with burst of photos in other scenarios. So let's go find some photos. I took some photos of birds. So let me scroll down. Here's a perfect example. Here's a group of 5 photos. And if I go through them, some of them are blurry, like that one's pretty blurry. So I can go ahead and mark that one to be deleted. That one is better framed than the last one. So I can mark the last one to be deleted. Sorry. And that one's also out of focus. The 2 in the middle seem to be the best ones, but that one definitely is better framing than that one. So I'm going to delete that one. So now I went from 5 photos of the same thing to just 1 photo. And if I were to go ahead and click delete check, it's going to delete the 4 extra photos in that burst that I don't really need. So that is one example of this tool. You can also control how big these groups are by adjusting the time between photos. The default time is, I'm going to uncheck everything. The default time is 2 seconds, but I can make that smaller or larger. So if I want bigger groups, I can say, show me photos taken within 1.2 seconds of each other. And notice that this group of birds just went from 2 to 4. Or I can say, show me photos that were taken within 5 seconds of each other. And now my groups are going to be smaller in some cases and larger in other cases. So that is how the photo dedupe tool works. And of course, any quick filter that you apply to Mylio for other purposes can also be applied within the photo declutter tool. So there you have it. That is the photo declutter tool. So we'll talk about advanced organization, and this truly is advanced. So if you're just starting with Mylio, you don't necessarily need to worry about this. Maybe it's a long-term goal, something that you want to accomplish, but maybe something that you're ready to do right away. So we'll talk about it. Categories and spaces are additional levels of organization that you can add to your photo library to get you even in more control of that library. So let's switch back to the application again and look at my calendar view here. And in my calendar view, you're seeing all kinds of photos, right? Photos of my family, photos of events. You're seeing underwater photos, which is my hobby. Let's say that I only wanted to be working on my underwater photos, and I wanted every view in Mylio to correspond to only underwater photos. Well, I could apply a quick filter, and I could link those filters to every view, or I could simply move to a different workspace. And spaces is just that. It's a different space in which you select which parts of the library are present. Think of it as your desk. You have an office and you happen to have 3 work tables. And on one work table, you're working on project A. On another work table, you're working on project B. And in another work table, you're working on project C. Each one of those tables represents a space. So Mylio allows you to create these spaces to work on just segments of your library. I'm going to go in here and choose the underwater space. And when I do so, notice that my calendar view has changed from showing me all kinds of photos to only showing me photos that are underwater photos. And this is pervasive throughout the entire library right now. If I were to go to my map view, oops, I zoomed in too much. Let's zoom out. If I go to my map view, notice that what before was showing my entire library of photos is now only showing the photos that are pertinent to the view that I'm in, the underwater view. And you can see, I'm sorry, not view, but space. You can see what space you're working in at the very top of the screen. Right now, I'm working in the underwater space. I'm in the map view within the underwater space. If I go to my people view, I happen to be inside the Lucy folder. Well, I haven't taken my daughter scuba diving yet, so there's no photos of Lucy in the underwater space. But if I were to step back, there are other people that I've gone diving with. So my people view does have some underwater photos of other people. Same with my albums. There might be some photos that, some albums that have underwater photos. And even my folder view is only going to show me the folders that correspond with this space, which in this case is underwater. Now, how did I do this? How did I create this space that only shows me my underwater photos? Well, I did it by using something called categories. And categories is a way to broadly categorize your photos and to help you compartmentalize them very, very quickly. One of the most useful things about categories is identifying photos that you want to keep private versus photos that you want to keep public. You might have noticed as I was doing my presentation that the space I was in was the public space. You see the word public there on the top. That does not mean that my photos are public in any way. That does not mean that my photos are being shared, because photos from Mylio are never shared with others. They're only in your devices and always in your control. Mylio does not have access to your photos. Public just means they're not private. It's simply the opposite of private. Now, what is a private photo? Well, I could find a photo that I find that needs to be private. You know, perhaps this photo of Lucy crying. I don't want anybody to see Lucy in that state. So I can say, I want to hide this photo. And the moment I hide that photo is going to be marked not as being in 0 category. Is going to assign the private category to it. The moment I hide it, it's going to go away. The photo will be hidden, and I will not be able to see it unless I change my space from public to private. And notice that private has a little lock on it. If I try to switch to it, I have to enter a code. I am not going to enter that code. I'm going to exit here because those are private photos. I don't want you to see them. So that is what the most basic use of spaces is. You simply mark a photo over a group of photos as private, and they go from being in the public space where you can see only photos that are not marked private to the private space where you can only see photos that are marked private. Guess what the everything space shows you? Everything. Photos that are public, photos that are private, photos that are underwater, photos that you mark as family or friends, etc., etc., etc. So back to my underwater space. How did I create this? I create this by using a category for photos that were taken underwater. But it would be a lot of work for me to go to every single photo and assign the underwater category to it. You'll notice that all of these photos, I can select all these photos right here, and none of them directly have the category underwater assigned to them. I can pick one of these, and I can click on the plus for category and assign underwater, right? And now it has it on the top. But notice that underwater is also an inherited category for that photo. That is because the folder where these photos live has been tagged with that category. So that is my secret to the underwater category. I'm going to switch back to the public space. I'm going to go to my folder view here, and I'm going to go into my trips folder. And I'm going to show you that for every one of my trips, here's a trip to Bonaire, I have separated my photos that were taken underwater and photos that were taken on land. The photos that were taken underwater that are in that folder has the underwater category assigned to it. So any photo inside of that folder, or 450 photos inside of that folder, have inherited the underwater category. So every time I go into my underwater space, which has the criteria for it called underwater, photos that are inside this folder are going to show up. And this is how I categorize my photos very, very quickly. If I go to the top level of my trips folder, if I select that folder, you'll notice that it has the travel category assigned to it. It's my trips folder. Everything in those folders has to do with travel. So if I were to create a space for travel photos, all the photos in that folder have inherited that category. And that's how I would be able to quickly assign them and not have to manually tag every one of those photos. So that is a very brief overview of how categories and spaces work. They're incredibly powerful tools. If you are struggling and you see that something that you think should show in your library is not showing, make sure that you're in the correct space, that you haven't accidentally switch to the private space or to some other space. Most of the time, you're going to want to be in the public space or in the everything space. But as you continue to organize your library, as you continue to separate your work and want to work in different work tables, you can create those using the spaces feature by assigning categories to parts of your library. And there is a wonderful mini video course for categories and spaces that you can find on our community site. It's also part of our all-encompassing Mylio Fundamentals course. So either one of those classes goes more in depth into how to use categories and how to create spaces, and even how to assign a space to a particular device. So if you want an iPad that it only shows certain photos and nobody can delete or move or otherwise modify the photos when they're looking at them on that iPad, you can assign a space to that device and lock it with a PIN code, and then people will be able to see the photos that you're sharing in that device, but not modify them in any way. All right, so that is all we have time for today. Let's cover a few quick things in terms of resources where you can find more help. The in-app help menu is an incredible tool. It has so many links to so much help. So if you go here to the help menu right here under the menus, or if you click on the more panel and click help, there's quick start training, which is how to get started with Mylio. There's a downloadable PDF there. So when you click on that, it's going to open a website. There's a downloadable PDF to get you started. There are videos to get you started. You can join our community. That's how you sign for these webinars. That's how you find our video courses. You can go to our how-to guide, which is our manual. If you click on the how-to guide, it's going to take you to manual.mylio.com, just like community is community.mylio.com. And in the manual, you can find, I think it's over 1,000 pages now of reference material. It's not meant for you to read it from cover to cover. It's when you're trying to figure out how to do something, maybe you want a refresher on how you create an album. You just go in there, you go to the albums chapter, or you type the word album in the search field, and it'll show you everything related to albums, so you can have that quick reference. Lots and lots of helps. The Mylio Fundamentals course that I mentioned can also be accessed directly here, or you can find it in our community. Frequently asked questions, all kinds of things. Also very important, this is how you contact the support team, my team. If you click on Contact Mylio Support from the app itself, it's really helpful because we get logs from your system that shows us how your system is configured. It doesn't share any private information, doesn't share any photos. It takes a screenshot of where you are, but you can turn that off. If you don't want to send a screenshot, you can turn that off. But it'll send us those logs, and then we can analyze what's happening and provide you better support and better help much more quickly than if you just send us a note on the support.mylio.com website. So other resources include the support forum. This is a place where users help each other. So it's a user forum. You go in there, you ask a question, other users tell you their answers or their experience with that particular thing. And our support site, support.mylio.com, has lots of information about troubleshooting, things that might not be in the manual because they're not reference material, but they're specific to a problem you're having, perhaps with a specific device. You know, if we know that a certain model of phone is not working or that a specific operating system is not supported, you will find that information in the support.mylio.com site. Also, there is a little chat bot there that you can ask questions to. And most of the time, during Pacific time zone business hours, it's staffed by real people. So if the chatbot doesn't give you the right answer, you can ask to talk to a real person and they'll be able to help you. If not, they'll help you create a ticket with the technical support team so that you can get the help you need. All right, and that's it. So any questions? Anything else that I can answer?
Sure, there's just a couple questions. One is from Simon, who wants to see the auto-organized folder feature.
Yes.
If you could just show him.
Yeah, so I'm not going to demonstrate it. I'm going to talk about it because my folders are organized exactly how I want them and I don't want them changed. But for example, if I click here on this test folder, notice that Mylio already knows the date range for photos inside that folder. It tells me there's 951 photos and that they range from July 4th, 2011 to November 6th of 2023. I can right mouse click and I can go to more folder actions. And one of the, one thing that you should know is that the auto organize feature for folders does not work unless you are in the everything space. And if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense because when you're in a space other than everything, certain parts of your folders may be hidden. So you don't want to organize them unless you're looking at everything. So the first thing I need to do is I need to switch from the public space to the everything space. So I will do that. I'm now not in a space, I'm looking at everything. And when I click on folder actions, one of the actions is to organize the folders. I can also rename the files in that folder or scan for changes in that folder. But the question was about organized folders. If I click on that, it gives me options on how I want those folders organized. If, for example, I selected the first option, year and month, it will take the contents of that folder and it would create new folders for every year and every month. And it would put the photos that correspond to the year and month in those newly created folders. And again, I'm not going to do that because I like my library exactly how it is and I don't want to change the folder structure, but that is how it works. This feature is super powerful. You can even create highly customizable folders that use things like the camera serial number or the day of the month or the full camera name. You can create padding for the numbering scheme. You can use timetables. You can use all kinds of different variables. And you can program it exactly how you want your folders to be created. And Mylio will use that formula to create those folders and move the photos accordingly. What I always recommend when it comes to auto organization of folders is that you do a small test, put a few photos in one folder, and then auto organize that folder so that you see that the results you're getting are what you want, instead of doing your entire library auto organized once, because once you use the organize folders feature, it is not reversible. So it won't go back to how you were before. So I always recommend that you do a small test first before using that feature. I hope that answered your question, Simon.
Great. William has a question about the Lightroom plugin. If you have time to answer that.
I can read it. I have Mylio Photos Lightroom plugin installed. I do all the changes made in Mylio. Go to, if I have the Mylio Photos Lightroom plugin installed, do all the changes I made in Mylio go to Lightroom, including categories and spaces? No, not at all. Let me make a couple of distinctions here. Categories, spaces, events, albums, these are features that are exclusive to Mylio. They are not going to work with other applications. There isn't a standard set of metadata for those features. These are Mylio inventions and some of the features that are unique to Mylio and that make Mylio so unique and so powerful. Lightroom doesn't have anything like categories or anything like spaces available, so there isn't a direct translation that we can make back to it. The other thing to consider and remember is that we can only control Mylio. We cannot control third-party software. So if the feature doesn't exist in that software, we can add it, obviously. But also other software is constantly changing. So we do not attempt to do that. What the plugin for Mylio does in Lightroom is it allows you to publish a photo that was edited in Lightroom back to Mylio with all the changes baked in. I can give you a quick demonstration. So I'm going to go to one of these photos. Let's say this underwater photo right here. I want to open this in Lightroom. I'm going to say open with Lightroom Classic. Mylio is going to launch Lightroom. It's going to open that photo, and I'm going to use Lightroom to color correct and crop this photo because there are certain tools in Lightroom that I don't have in Mylio that I think will do a better job. and I haven't used Lightroom in a while because I didn't need to. So it's upgrading my catalog. It might take a second here, but here we go. All right, so now we are in Lightroom. That photo has been selected for import. So I'm just going to click the import button, and it's going to bring that photo. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to develop it. Okay, Adobe, I know. Thank you. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to color correct this photo. So I'm going to use the eyedropper. I'm going to find something white. Maybe. There we go. And I'm not really trying to do a good job with this photo, so you'll have to excuse if it doesn't look that great. I'm just demonstrating. So there, I changed the photo. I'm going to maybe do a quick cropping of it. And I'm going to, haven't seen this version of Lightroom. I'm kind of learning as I go here. There we go. All right. So there's my corrected photo. I can go ahead and publish this photo using the Mylio plugin now. You'll see it. Maybe it's not in this version. If I go here to my library, you see that there's the Mylio plugin there. I can grab this photo now and add it to my Mylio photo stream. And what that does is it's going to create a display image that will go to my Mylio library with those changes baked in, but it will not replace the original photo. So if I switch to Mylio now and I back up that photo, in just a second, Mylio will pick up that change. Oh, actually, I didn't hit publish. I have to go here and click the publish button. Okay, so now that photo is published. I go back to Mylio, and in a few seconds, you'll see that that photo here is going to change, and it's going to show the changes that I created in Mylio because a new version of the photo was added, and the plugin for Mylio published those changes and assigned them to the photo in Mylio without releasing the underlying original file. So the original file is still there, but not the other one. It's not picking up the change for some reason. I have a lot. Oh, there it goes. So there's the change now. If I look at the information for this photo now, notice that the original Olympus file format for this photo is still there. There's now also a JPEG for that file. If I were to show you this file externally in one of my vaults, you will be able to see that there is the original file right there, and then there's the display image that the Mylio plugin created in Lightroom so that I can see these changes without affecting the original file. So that is the role of the Mylio Photos plugin. It's not a plugin to make Lightroom and Mylio work the same, because that wouldn't be possible. I hope that answers the question. Do files move in Mylio show up in Lightroom? Well, the way Lightroom works is Lightroom keeps a link for every photo in the Lightroom catalog. So the Lightroom catalog has the exact path where a photo lives, and that's how it finds it. It's very different from what Mylio does, which Mylio is constantly monitoring your folders, and if it sees a photo gets moved from one folder to another, it just notices. Lightroom doesn't do that. So no, if you move a photo in Mylio, when you go to Lightroom, it's going to say, I can't find this photo, and you're going to have to show Lightroom where that photo is. Now, if you do it the other way, if you move a photo with Lightroom, Mylio will find it, because Mylio is smart enough to do that. Any other questions?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I hope that you learned something today and that it helps you organize and enjoy your photos. You see where you can find more information. So go and have fun, and we'll see you at the next one.